Hi all, podcast 11, which is a good number, and it is the 14th of January 2025 today, and we're still within the scheme of correct use of power and the correct understanding that goes with our original consciousness potentials. It has, of course, been a day where things have come my way that have given me specific insights. And one of them, of course, goes with the ones we hold dear, the ones that are around us that are not doing this work, and what we can expect and not expect from them. And of course, we can't really expect anything because they are on their path as everybody else is on their path and doing their thing to the best of their abilities as they learn to go through their patterns and what they need to work with to undo their deeds of the past and the actions and choices they have made in this and previous lifetimes. It is not fruitful to demand perfection in a world that is foundationally flawed and imperfect. It's kind of a fool's game. And with that, I want to talk a little bit about, again, the tarot card, the Fool, because it is a good place to begin, those of us who begin this work. We are the Fool. We are standing there thinking the world is more perfect than it is, that things are easier than they appear to be. We are like the happy little dog that is at the feet, jumping around. And I hear talking Roger Wade and his cards, which are the most neutral ones. And just standing there ready to take over the world, so to speak, with who and what we are before we go to the path of the magician. And learn all the difficulties of what it means to be on the major arcana, where we work with different archetypes that are both a trap and something that can inflate us, but at the same time is also an archetype or a stereotype that we can transform and let go of. The tarot cards are kind of a bridge between this and the base program, and I would like to view them as such. Something that we can disconnect via the symbolic representation on the cards. Some processes we can learn from as part of our personal journey. Or something that we can use to bridge to a world that holds specific laws and energies due to the stagnant cross. And by that, not getting into trouble as we are moving further down the subsidiary timeline. The subsidiary timeline is the path of liberation. It is the last path of how to leave this reality field. And with that goes the teachings, as we have heard in many different aspects and versions and through different facilitators of this information, that we must let go of everything we are and what we know of, become innocent and like a child, like the Fool once more. But as we work through the major arcana, if we choose to do it through the path of archetypes and the collective energies that were instigated a long time ago by the secret societies, or we wish to do it through our own learning processes or as part of the transition sciences that I have tried to give my best of how to work with, knowing that they too are flawed and imperfect, because not all information can be covered to create the correct coherence pattern. Only we can do that. And as we stand like the Fool and look back at the path that we have carved, we recognize that we are no wiser, no smarter. We actually know less, as it's always been said. But if we go back with the Fool's game and look at the beginning as the Fool, thinking the world is something that is not, thinking that this is possible, everything is full of possibilities, everything can be manifested, everything can be co-created, everything can be changed, if only, and then we get into trouble. Because the Fool's game is, of course, the Fool's errand is, of course, that we are looking at the world not as it actually is. The right angle of the Fool, instead of being a fool of innocence and not knowing what to do, there is this weird balance point between innocence and ignorance. And that's the first learning lesson that we are learning when we're looking at the Fool. That we can't, It's not fruitful for our continued journey to operate with ignorance. The price we pay for that is too high. But we can't be completely innocent either, because that price we'll have to pay there will be too high as well. Like a piece of light, a little light that comes into a world of darkness, shines in the darkness just to discover how high the price is to truly shine our light. So innocence is good to keep the heart vibrating in a specific manner where we are aware of the polarities, the dichotomies, the ambivalent journey that we are on, understanding that there are highs and lows, that there are ins and outs, that there are different types of polarities and oppositions. That is part of our path. So instead of being the fool with an innocent grin on our face or a grin of ignorance, thinking that the world is in front of us before our feet, which is drawn in the tarot card of the Fool, it's actually not a path that's in front of us as a whole world lying in front of our feet of all possibilities. It is on the card drawn as an abyss, a cliff that if it takes one step further, not only will he take a step into the true teachings, that is a leap of faith, but at the same time also discovering that if he's not treading carefully, he will falter and fall, and the pain and the hurt and what will happen will be more than anyone bargained for. So it's not about going into the path of evacuation or the path of liberation, blindsided or ignorant, or putting our own faculties higher than they actually are. All of that is part of the Fool. The Fool's errand, thinking that we are more than we are, inflated, ignorant, and innocent. And with that, we must work against these three eyes and understand that as we walk, it's not the abyss. We will walk for a long time, aligned with 1 foot on the ground, and next to us, the abyss, the cliff, the nowhere, the unknown, what we're dealing with that we don't know what is. To some degree, ignorance is good, because if we knew what we were going to face, we wouldn't begin the journey. So in that way, it's a good thing. But later on, ignorance becomes a heavy burden that drags us to the abyss, that drags us into the steep hill, falling down and crash and burn, where we must learn to let go of that chain of ignorance and become fully aware and observant of what's going on. We must have the eyes of a falk. We must have the knowledge of an owl, and we must know how to navigate seeing things from above from time to time, and at the same time also know when to put our feet on the ground, when to do what we need to do in order to change the circumstances. So the Fool matures, and as he walks and as she walks, because a Fool can both be male and female, we learn that we are walking the fine line between the abyss and the solid ground under our feet. And we acknowledge the fact that both are impossible to master. You can't master the abyss of chaos and entropy and annihilation. And the ground itself is too crystallized, even though it feels nice and gives us comfort. It is a path, it is a stepped learning journey that is difficult in a world that doesn't want to receive change, that is working against change, that feel that change is something that is dangerous. In that, we walk the middle ground between the abyss and the ground of non-changeability, between the stagnant cross and the abyss. That's the world we're in, and that's why it cannot be perfect. That's why the innocence of thinking everything is possible will be torn from us, bit by bit. Little pieces here, little pieces there, until we learn to travel light, to have little with us, and to understand that we must move, perhaps not all the time, whether it's a physical move, an emotional move, or a mental move, or a higher order energetic move. We let go, we learn to annihilate, use the powers of the abyss to let go and disintegrate. And we learn what to crystallize for a period of time, so it creates a path. And once it has been created, we let that one go too, and see how it evaporates and ceases to exist. As we get more skilled in the path and the path of progression, we learn to not look back, because eventually, as we look back, we will see that we might walk on solid ground now, but everything behind us is falling into the abyss. So there's only one way, and that's forward. Once we reach that, it's called the burning ground, we recognize that we have now got ourselves so far into the path of liberation and letting go of this world as it actually is, and recognize that it's no longer our world and we have no longer any place in it, but only what we build and what we put in front of us, so we have steps to go on. It's like manifesting the steps as we go along. That's part of the co-creation as well on the subsidiary timeline. We are creating the footsteps, the little patches of solid ground that for a while will be a place where we can keep our feet, where we have somewhere to work from, where we have a little sacred spot that is ours to work from. All of these individual patches of safety, a current comfort zone, a little piece here, a little piece of solace, where we for 2 seconds can breathe, sit down for a while and rest. We then also recognize that everything around us is like this weird abyss, burning fire, things that are falling away and no longer exist. And we understand that we are upholding this little patch by our own being, by our own powers, and that we create all the time a reality, a world, a scenario, interaction, whatever's going on through our own energy field. And we recognize that the only existence that's worth pursuing is the one where transformation is the gist, is the foundational principle of whatever we need to become, whatever we need to create to continue the journey out of this reality field. At some point, we also recognize we need to build bridges. We need to create distance between us and the world as it is. Not because we are feeling aggression or sadness or any emotional rejection, but because the world no longer matters to us, because the world no longer has anything to offer. It can no longer connect to us. We no longer connect to it. We are looking at it, but we are no longer feeling excitement. We are sensing it, but we are no longer feeling excitement. We are part of it. Sometimes we do still, and I do still, feel annoyance and feeling that this is difficult, and I get frustrated. And then I'm reminded again and again, this world is what it is. It's no longer mine. I'm no longer part of it, and it's no longer my responsibility. It is humanity's responsibility. It's not my responsibility. I'm not the one that is to create the changes that will change the world. I'm the one that is giving over, leaving behind, giving what I can to those who might or might not come after. And as I do so, I do it to the best of my abilities, but also knowing in an imperfect world, I cannot create perfection. I cannot be like the fool, imagining, being inflated by my own crucial ideas of what I can and cannot do, and recognize the limitations of my co-creations. They can go so far. They are an exemplification of who and what I am, what energies I hold, and the world that I'm part of. It can be no other way. It cannot be something that I put into a context where it doesn't belong, or put it into a level of progression rate that it doesn't have the ability to keep, because then it will act as a polarity or an opposition to something that does not recognize it, that is not willing to change according to it, and then it can only meet repelling, rejection, and potentially falling out of its own order and into entropy and chaos. Or it will remain at its highest order, but then it's so far away that nobody can use it anyways. So at the end of the day, why do we keep co-creating? Why do we create whatever we are creating? For whatever purpose and for whatever reason. The first step is that we are co-creating because it's in our making. It's part of us. That's what we do. we transform, we co-create to transform, we transform to be able to co-create. That's how we go about it. We transform, so we change, and as we change, we begin to co-create on a new level. It's part of our infinity cycle inside the different schemes, inside the different domains. These ideas, of course, mirrored into the many ancient teachings, however distorted, however true or however not true, that is not really the case. But it is a case that whatever we look at, we participate in. Whatever we listen to, we participate in. Whatever our faculties come in touch with, we participate in, because we bring it to life by our awareness. Our awareness and our consciousness is what brings to life, as it rightfully were to begin with. We know it. Consciousness works with energy to transform energy. So as we look at things, we begin to transform it. As we listen to things, we begin to transform it. As we touch things, we begin to transform it, either for good or for ill. Depends on how the states are and how the levels are of our energy units and our consciousness potentials. So we impact everything around us. When we talk about things, we project a specific thought form onto it. When we think about things, we project a specific thought form onto what we're thinking about. We don't even have to say it out loud. We can just think about it. What we feel will create a projection as well. It creates a pattern that impacts the ones we're thinking about, the ones we're feeling about. If we're feeling specific things within a range of kindness and compassion, and we think that and try to create something that's good and does not hold any ill intent, it can have the complete opposite affection or effect, because it is affecting the field that has not asked for this. Sorry, I'm a little bit clumsy here when I'm trying to explain these dynamics, but they're super important. What we feel towards another person can cause great harm. Should we then feel anything for another person? Sometimes yes, when the person is there, present, in front of us, in direct communication and fully aware of us, as we are right there in front of them. Then we exchange within the different levels that is possible, that can be received, that can be exchanged. The moment we think of a person when the person is not there, we are trespassing. It's field intrusion. We cannot think about a person that is not present there. If that person, like me, are putting on a podcast or a video on YouTube, or you're listening to it here, then I am technically present because I know that you will listen. And by that, I have put myself in a situation where I allow, to some degree, interaction without my conscious knowledge. But I'm also putting up a barrier and saying, this I'm sharing here is not for you to continue to contemplate. It's not me you're contemplating upon, it's the information. So it should not be about the messenger, but about what's the message. What is the information? You can contemplate upon the information, but not the messenger. However, this is an imperfect world where most people are not able to disconnect the message from the messenger. And with that, I get inflated and infiltrated into that non-ability to discern between the message and the messenger. And that's also why I've always known that at some point I can no longer do these videos and these podcasts, of which this most likely is the last one, where I'm directly associating my consciousness and my awareness with information, and most likely will create content, if I continue to do so, that is not in alignment with where I am, who I am, and what I have become. I will, as so many other groups that are present in our reality field right now, use different tools that will act as bridges between me and what is delivered, and in that way continue to give and continue to assist to the best ways possible, using technology to do so. But I will not get inflicted by the message I am giving, because the messenger will then there be the technology and not I as a person. So you will not listen to me. You will hear more and more that are using AI to do it for them. We've seen that with many of the messengers that used to have direct channeling into people and then stopped doing that, and then it all became a matter of an artificial voice that would do the information. So there is a pull for everyone who are part of the worlds beyond this reality, acknowledging and understanding that this world as it is has played its role, its purpose, and its function. And that's why we are all extracting, including me. Does this then mean I'll start using AI voices for my material? No, of course not. But it means I will change the way I'm operating and the way I'm working. And it means I will use different tools than direct information giving. I will work through papers, for instance, where the paper itself becomes the tool or the media or the intermediary or the medium, you choose yourself, that will deliver the information. I will disconnect from it to the best of my abilities. I will have little personal imprint in whatever I'm delivering. It will more be the sciences for the sake of the sciences and the purpose of the sciences. And then, as it always has been for those who are doing this work, after we have been through the 1-7 pillar, the 2-8 and the 3-9, the correct governance is not just about governance of other or reality field, but it is also the governance of our energies as we are on the path of liberation. And what does that mean? As I said from the get-go, there are the first 3 steps on the path of liberation where we're working through the 1-7, 2-8 and 3-9, and then eventually we'll go through the door where we have no further possibility to reach quote-unquote humanity or the idea of humanity, the global collective field of different forms of organisms and thought forms and emotional fields and patterns and entities and whatnot, which is what humanity is, a conglomerate of energies in different forms of expression. We understand that we can only give so much to that soup of chaos, and only the ones that are in it can make sense of that chaos. We have given what we could, we have shared what we could, we have assisted to the best of our abilities as we walk through the same footsteps as others will walk, and then also realizing and acknowledging that we have done what was possible in an imperfect world. The first of many to realize that is also part of the path, where the fool stops being the fool and begins to go into the correct learning curve of what it truly means to co-create and what should be co-created and what should not be co-created, what should be manifested and what should not be manifested. It is a journey of sadness as well, as we are letting more and more go and looking in back and saying, I did the best I could have done more, we can always do more, but we are under the laws of the recipient. If the receiver cannot receive what's given, we cannot give more. We can only give what's allowed to be given on the stagnant cross. We cannot take down what is on the cross unless it wants to be taken down. We can't force the horse to drink unless it's thirsty and wants to drink. We can't give people the insights and the information unless they're willing to contemplate on it and look through their idiosyncrasies and their limitations and their blind spots. We can't shine light on people who doesn't want to be lightened up. We can't shine a light into darkness that does not want the light, that rejects the light, that doesn't want to see the light, that doesn't want to receive the light. We can't give information to people who doesn't want to hear. We can't tell them what to do to people who doesn't want to acknowledge their shortcomings. We can only give it and say, here, take it. See if you can use it. I can't tell you what to do with it, but it's important and it will help you. But I also know that what I've given will cost a lot. It has a high price. Every single bit of the information in the whole academy has had a high price for me and for those who have studied it, whether it's a price of the counter forces or what came from the energies of it, or the fact that this is not possible, that this is not achievable. After so many years, so little has happened. And that process of what that is, that scrutinization of why nothing more has happened. What are the limitations? What are the things that are enabling the blind spots? What is it that we are afraid of watching and seeing and acknowledging? Why do humanity act like the fool, thinking that all possibilities are open, when the fact is that they're stepping right into a disaster with that understanding of reality? Why does the fool reject to become the master or the magician and walk the path of true knowledge? And why is it that the different forces so easily can get a grip of the ones who are trying to achieve what they want to achieve, whatever that is? Why is it the service to self, in a way like the fool, wanting to work and do whatever the fool wants to do, not acknowledging the rules, the laws, and the world that he or she is actually part of, and how it truly works, what our limitations are, and what our possibilities are, and what our true function is in this world of imperfection. Acknowledging what truly is the first step of the journey. Taking away the blinders that we have on and see things from all levels of reality. Being ready to accept that what we want to be out there might not be out there. Be ready to accept that what we think we are, we might not be. Be ready to accept that what we want to achieve, we might not be able to. But we can transform, and we can change, and we can work with who and what we are to the best of our abilities. And as I'm here again standing in front of another door, getting ready to begin to use tools between me and the world as it is, because there's nothing more I can give it. There's nothing more I can do for it. I can continue to step back and say, yes, I'll try and give it another go, but there's less and less to work with, so why even do that when at some point it must be recognized that there's only so much that can be done, and then it's up to those who are there to let that play out as they are willing to. Interestingly enough, the Tibetan did that as well in 1959. And all the other voices that have been here giving teachings, assisted, helped, taught, given frames of references, shared information, have had groups, and done what they could, they too must come to the point at some level in their work where they realize that either they continue doing what they're doing and then it becomes a repetition, or they move beyond and transcend and let it go and say, I've done what I could on the path of transition, transformation, and or transformation, transition, transmutation. And now it's time that I as well transcend and leave behind to the best of my abilities what I can, so that others can continue their journey as they so choose, as they so will, in the manner that suits them best, and trust the process that those who can, they will, and those who will, they can, if they choose to do so. Because at the end of the day, it's an individual choice how far we want to push the levels of our own progression journey. Nobody can do that for us. That is our choice. That's the ultimate choice. And with that, recognizing that what we are is not in alignment with the world as it is, and what we can become is no longer in alignment with the world as it is. We are not saying it cannot happen or it's completely impossible, because then we project that onto the world. But we can say, for us as individuals that have come so far, and myself included, it's time for me to create the distance again, to step out of the stagnant cross, to leave that behind, see how it evaporates and no longer plays in. I'm no longer creating the bridge between what I know and the ones on the stagnant cross. It is not my job. It is their job themselves to recognize what they are and what they have become. And then it's their job to change the stagnant cross into a cross of transformation. And then it's their job to follow the teachings and the guidelines from me and others that have been granted through different means and different methods into whatever purpose and function that suits them best according to their consciousness and according to their way of existing and according to the choices and their consciousness potentials. It is up to people to learn to use their own power for the highest good of themselves, for others, and the reality in itself. It's not up to me to decide what is the best way to go around things. It's taken me a long time to realize that. It was a good tool as I created the sciences and the teachings that has definitely give frames of references as part of the original Pillar project. And I had to have that idea and that belief to be able to push through and keep doing it. Because if I had that realization as I have now, I wouldn't have been able to do it. So my strength came from an idea of perfection that was possible to project onto reality. It's still possible, it's still there. I like what I have created. But it's no longer something I will give energy. It's no longer something I will uphold or use my consciousness potentials or my powers to uphold, since it's quite some time now. It's over 10 years, if not 20 years. I've been doing this. And of course I could say, well, I have to keep up the light. I have to keep up the energy. I have to feed the pattern. I have to keep giving it energy. But I also recognized last time I stood here and I had the same choice, continue or move beyond and transcend. I chose to step back. And that led into a second round or a third round, because I've done it many times before, just in this lifetime. And every time I step back and step down, the fight, the journey, the challenges have been harder and harder each time, as if there is some kind of rule inside this reality. At some point, you just let go and transcend and move beyond. It's not for us to be here forever and for eternity. At some point, we must let go and elevate due to the laws of the cycles. Does this then mean that I'm elevating? No, it means I'm creating distance. I'm beginning to repel so I can find what's truly mine and not what is being imposed onto me from the ones that are listening to my material, from the material I have granted and given, from the giving over or whatever it is. It's a natural dynamic at some point to leave behind and move beyond and transcend. That's part of the giving over. That's part of the letting go. That is part of realizing things as they truly are and understand what our role is in what truly is and what our role is not, and what we should and should not do, what we should give and what we should not give, and where to co-create and where not to co-create. And when it's time to let go, time to move beyond, and time to transcend. I hope you have enjoyed this course material, alongside with many other levels of this course material and other levels that I have created. And with that, I will end the module 2. And with that, continuing my journey of transcension, as I began a long time ago, and with whatever that means, continuing to the randygreen.1, where I'll work with the sciences, which is the next step of my journey, the sciences of the future, that might not have any grounds in this world whatsoever, but the building purpose of it is to restore that energy system that will allow my energy system as the first of many to complete the path of liberation, to get to the safe zone as the first of many, set an example, open the door, and then go through it so that others can do exactly that and go through that too, and also at some point transcend this world. however many there will do it, at least some of us will succeed. And as we do so, others can succeed too. That's the law of the many, the first of the many. And I will continue to do so with whatever the path itself asks of me. And with that, I let go and I accept the circumstances of the path of liberation. I take care of what I hold dear. I transform and progress what is necessary. But I understand I am now on the path of transcending. And that too has its own laws, its own principles, and its own dynamics. And if I want to reach the path that leads to the safe zones, I must too acknowledge these, see things as they truly are, and do what I have to do to continue my own journey, not as the fool, not as the master, but the ones that acknowledge in true awareness and in true humble awareness what it truly means to leave behind, move beyond, and transcend this world as it actually is. And what opens up will open up, and what is asked for, I will do. And with that, I'll say thank you. Thank you for having been there with me for so many years. And I hope you too will reach the points, the levels of your journey that will lead you to your true understanding of who and what you are, and your true use of power and consciousness in the way that you were destined to do from the get-go, that was part of your lineage and part of your original consciousness structures. And with that, I will end this podcast. Thank you.